Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today. My name is Iris Turner, and I am Congresswoman Blunt Rochester's Deputy State Director. With such historic legislation passed last Congress during the last Congress, including the American Rescue Plan, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the CHIPS and Science Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, and the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, there's federal funding available to strengthen our economy, cut costs for Americans, saving our planet, and more. As a member of the Regional Leadership Council, the Congresswoman is a part of a council that is really looking to make sure that we are making sure that the federal funding that is available is to the constituents of Delaware and is able to be accessible, and to make sure that you receive notifications about future webinars and additional resources. You can sign up for our newsletter on our website at bluntrochester.house.gov. Today's webinar will be an overview of the implementation of the CHIPS and Science Act and other federal funding opportunities that are available with the Department of Commerce. Our special guest and lead presenter today is from the Department of Commerce is Whitney Duffy Jones, who works in the Office of the Secretary and leads implementation at the DOC. Whitney will review her presentation on DOC's grant application process, CHIPS and Science Act funding, and other resources available to interested applicants. After the presentation, we'll turn it over to question and answer portion of the event, where we will review questions that you submitted ahead of time. If you have any technical difficulties at any point during the webinar or need assistance, please call our main office line at 302-830-2330. A recording of this webinar will be available after the event on our website and will be sent in our weekly newsletter. Now, I'll turn it over to you, Whitney, for your presentation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Iris, and thank you for having me. Let me pull up my presentation for you all. All right, great. Well, I will go ahead and launch right in. First, just to go over quickly the agenda of some of the topics that I have to review today. First, I wanted to make sure that everybody knows where they can find our grants information. And then I'd like to spend the bulk of my time with you today talking a little bit about some of our different exciting programs that we have at the Department of Commerce, some of our currently open notices of funding opportunity that are accepting applications, as well as some upcoming opportunities that you can keep an eye out for, and then go through a few of the resources that I've prepared for you. We will be making these slides available to everybody, so you'll see as I'm going through, there's a lot of information here. There's a lot of embedded links, and there's a lot of reference materials enclosed as well. So hopefully this will be, in addition to our conversation today, a great resource for you all moving forward. So first and foremost, I just want to say I'm so excited to talk to you today because this is such an exciting and historic moment for the Department of Commerce between some of the multiple major pieces of legislation that have passed in recent years, the American Rescue Plan, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the Inflation Reduction Act, and the CHIPS and Science Act. The Department of Commerce is really doing a lot of very exciting things in local communities across the country to invest in those communities, to create good jobs, and to make sure that workers have the skills that they need to fill those positions. So we're about 2 years in to implementation of all these major initiatives, and we think that we've really made some remarkable progress, but there's still a lot of exciting things coming down the pipeline, so I'm excited to share more about those with you today. So next here, you just see, I've included a landing page here just to show you some of the different places that you can find information about the Department of Commerce's grants. So obviously there's grants.gov, that's sort of the gold standard for finding information about open grant opportunities. But I also wanted to make sure that you all know that we also have individual landing pages for every single one of our programs with links to funding announcements, but also to really key important information like technical assistance, more background information about the program, how to apply, suggestions on how to pull together a really strong application. So I've included some screen grabs of those pages here, but again, those will be linked later in the presentation for your reference. If there's a particular program or bureau's activities that you're interested in learning more, those would be great resources for you. So next, I'd like to give you a brief overview of some of our major programs at the department. Obviously, we have a lot of activities going on, so I won't touch on every single thing. But first and foremost is our CHIPS program. The CHIPS and Science Act provided the Department of Commerce with $50 billion to help revitalize the domestic semiconductor industry. It funded two programs, an incentives program, which is focused on boosting production, as well as a research and development program to focus on establishing stronger technologies domestically as well. Both of those programs are housed at our bureau, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST. We've published an amended notice of funding opportunity recently on June 23rd, which is soliciting applications for that incentives funding. And we're accepting applications for that particular program on a rolling basis right now. In addition to providing incentives for constructing, expanding, or modernizing commercial facilities for semiconductor fabrication, this NOFA was also expanded to include commercial facilities where there would be capital investments exceeding $300 million. We're accepting right now optional pre-applications as well as full applications. That pre-application process is definitely recommended, but not required. And we'll be accepting applications for that program for the full applications beginning October 23rd. Next up is our broadband program. That may be one that you've seen in the headlines recently. Definitely a lot of exciting activity going on there. But under the bipartisan infrastructure law, the Department of Commerce received over $48 billion to support broadband programs. And really, this is focused on bringing high-speed internet access to all Americans, high-quality internet to all households, places of business, places of education, and really closing that digital divide across the country. We've got several programs here of note that I would point out to you. The first is the Broadband Equity, Access, and Deployment Program, or you'll hear it sometimes referred to as the BEAD program, which provided $42.5 billion to states and territories for the planning, the infrastructure deployment, and the adoption of internet connectivity programs. NTIA, the bureau at the Department of Commerce, which operates this program, recently announced the allocations of funding. This is a formula grant program where money was divided between states based on the number of unserved and underserved locations that were identified by the FCC. Delaware was allocated approximately $108 million in this process, and initial proposals are being accepted on a rolling basis now through the end of this year, and that will allow states to access at least 20% of this funding to start their planning processes and early deployment work. We've got three digital equity or DE programs, which are including $2.75 billion to promote digital equity and inclusion programs. NTIA is currently reviewing comments for integration into program design, so stay tuned for a future funding opportunity there. We additionally have the Middle Mile program, which is more focused on building out some of the internet backbone, middle mile infrastructure to ensure that the internet superhighway and the local connections into people's homes, places of business, and educational institutions are fully built out and connected. And then last but not least, we have our Tribal Broadband Connectivity Program, or TBCP, which is $3 billion in funding to expand high-speed internet access on tribal lands. And we've announced a second notice of funding opportunity for this program in July. It's open now and will close in January, which will allocate and award the remaining $1 billion in funding there. So next, I'll touch on some of NOAA's programs. NOAA actually received funding in two batches from two major bills. So the first is from the bipartisan infrastructure law. NOAA received almost $3 billion over a 5-year period to invest in local communities and supporting habitat restoration, coastal resilience, and weather forecasting infrastructure. And this funding is divided into three major categories. There's work related to climate data and services, which is supporting a whole of government effort to address the climate crisis by getting key information into the hands of decision makers. There's our work on what we call our Climate Ready Coasts initiative, which is looking to invest in natural infrastructure projects that will build coastal resilience, both ecological and environmental, create jobs, store carbon, and restore habitats, and then finally, fisheries and protected resources. Again, another government-wide effort to support environmental stewardship and promote community economic development. Additionally, NOAA received an additional $3.3 billion in the Inflation Reduction Act to prepare, adapt, and build resilience to weather and climate events, improve supercomputing capacity to support research on weather, oceans, and climate, to strengthen the hurricane hunter fleet and replace aging facilities. So this includes some exciting new programs for us, as well as some extensions of existing initiatives. One major new one is our Climate Resilience Regional Challenge. This is a holistic collaborative approach to building regional approaches to coastal resilience. There's our tribal programs to support capacity building, fish hatcheries, fish passage, habitat restoration. Our Climate Ready Fisheries Initiative, which seeks to conserve fisheries and protected species in coastal regions. Our ocean-based climate resilience accelerators. This is really a business-focused program that is looking to support nascent businesses with coastal or ocean-based products and services. And then our Climate Ready Workforce Program. This is a workforce program that is focused on placing workers into high-quality jobs that enhance climate resilience, to aid in training and support services that will help American workers advance their careers, and to support the implementation of climate resilience efforts, both in the public and private sectors. So next, I will switch over to just a quick highlight of some of our current opportunities here. You'll see I've listed here, and then in the blue text, this is all linked so that you can directly, if you're interested in a particular program, you can access this presentation and link directly to the notice of funding opportunity here. But as you can see, we have many exciting opportunities going on right now at NOAA, within the CHIPS program, as I discussed earlier, and as well as NTIA's tribal second NOFO that I mentioned earlier as well. Next, a little preview of some of our upcoming opportunities. The first is NOAA's Sea Grant opportunity is looking to be released shortly. This is a really innovative public-private opportunity where we're partnering with local educational institutions to build out STEM education, to build out better understanding and outreach as it relates to coastal resilience and sustainable economic activities. We've got an upcoming CHIPS NOFO that will be especially focused on small companies and how they can support the domestic semiconductor supply chain, as well as the upcoming R&D facility notice of funding opportunity. EDA has an upcoming notice of funding opportunity for its Recompete program. This is a program that's focused on a regional approach to economic development, particularly with a focus on historically distressed and underserved communities. NOAA's Climate Resilience Accelerators program, again, that's the business program that I referenced earlier, as well as NTIA's Innovation Fund, which is not one that I have talked about, but is looking to support, again, the domestic production of technologies, this time related to 5G and cell phone towers and networks. So I won't go through this in detail, but I did want to include this as just a reference tool for everybody who is attending today and for anybody who wasn't able to make it. But I wanted to outline the Department of Commerce has really two major categories of grant programs that we offer to applicants. The first is what's called a competitive grant. So this is basically where the notice of funding opportunity is posted online and available to folks, and the methodology for allocating and awarding funds to potential grantees is spelled out clearly as part of the application process, versus our formula grant program. And those are a little bit more of some of the state-based programs that I was talking about earlier, things like our BEAD program, but there's a few minor differences in some of the steps that applicants will go through and the sequencing of some of these steps. So I know this is one that sometimes confuses people. What's the distinction between these two different types of grants? So I wanted to include that as a reference for you all here. So next is just a list of some resources that we have available. I had showed you some of those landing pages earlier in the presentation. And I wanted to make sure that you have, for some of our major programs, some of those key links to resources if you'd like to sort of double click and learn a little bit more. I also wanted to make sure that I was able to give you some of these general resources down here at the bottom. So the first is grants.gov, which I mentioned at the outset, but I also wanted to make sure that folks were aware of two really excellent resources that the White House has made available for us. The first is the White House Infrastructure Guidebook, Building a Better America, which is listed there. That is a guide to all of the Department of Commerce's bipartisan infrastructure law programs, as well as really government-wide information about all of those programs. Similarly, we also have an Inflation Reduction Act guidebook, which is also linked there for you for your reference. Okay, if that was not enough information for you, I have also included some key landing pages for you all where you can find more informational webinars, guidance about our different programs, as well as points of contact. I know that that can always be a struggle when you're interested in a program, you want to potentially apply, you want to learn more, and you have trouble finding a person to connect with. So I wanted to make sure that I specifically left you all with some email points of contact so that if you have questions that you know who you can reach out to. And then last but not least, I know I touched on a number of different programs today. And so I just wanted to make sure that I also left you with some additional detail program by program. So I'll go in here quickly and I won't go through this whole appendix here. As you can see, it's several pages, but basically an overview of all of our funding opportunities broken out by the Bureau and the authorizing piece of legislation. So we've got here listed the program name for your reference, a very short description of what this program is, eligible entities. Again, I know this is also a very common stumbling block for folks. Hey, this seems like an interesting program. Am I on the list of people, businesses, organizations that could apply for this? So we do have that broken out for you here, as well as the total amount of the program and the type of grant. So again, I've included that for all of our different programs here. So please refer to that in the appendix. So with that, I will pause my screen share here and turn the mic back over to Iris.
Thanks, Whitney. All right. Next, we're going to go into our Q&A section of the program. And so when folks register to attend this event, they actually submitted their questions ahead of time. So we'll go through some of those. Our first one is Mary from Lewis, who asked, I've never applied for a grant before, and if I have questions about a grant to clarify what information is needed, how do I find that out? Also, how do I make my application strong?
Yeah, that is a great question. I've included links to a lot of the information where I think you can find out more about our programs and different opportunities that are open. How can you make a strong application? This is what I love to talk to people about. I'd say, first and foremost is, I would say that building a strong application is going to start before you even hit submit on that document. And so I'd say, please do go to the landing pages for our different programs. We do have federal program officers who are in your local field offices. Talk to those folks. Please utilize the materials that we're putting out to provide assistance and education about the programs. You can learn a lot about the sort of in between the line nuances of what will make an application strong, what are kind of the focus areas of a particular program. And then I'd say when you're looking at the notice of funding opportunity itself, I really encourage folks to read those very carefully. Those will very clearly outline what is required of you to submit. And so I would just honestly make a checklist for yourself against the NOFO and just say, okay, here's the requirement, here's the part of the submission, here's where I've submitted this information. Make sure that you don't inadvertently miss anything. And then my extra tip for folks that I always like to give is a lot of times in notices of funding opportunity, you'll see things that are listed as optional, but a lot of times can give you bonus points on your application. And so I would say, to the extent that those are things that are applicable to you, that you're eligible for, I'd say pay attention to those things in particular and try to put those additional kind of extra credit assignments into your application. Those are the types of things that can really make an application sing and stand out from the competition.
Well, we love to have applications sing. Next, we have a question from Peter from Newcastle, who said that they recently started a business and want to stay connected to funding opportunities that the DOC have available, but they haven't raised capital yet. Are there resources that can help their business?
Yeah, so I would say what I would really highlight there is one of our bureaus, NTIA, recently just launched a new program that's, I think, targeted at businesses just like yours, Peter, which are nascent early stage businesses that are looking to raise capital. So the Capital Readiness Program is specifically focused on helping connect entrepreneurs with networks, which can be a very hard thing to access when you're a new entrepreneur, helping you navigate different options for accessing capital, and also understanding what some of the different government programs are that you might be available to you, that you may be eligible for example, through the Small Business Administration. So we just literally started that program 7 days ago, and we've awarded funding to 2 different organizations, both of which that are doing work with small businesses across the state of Delaware.
Perfect, thank you. Our next question is from Annie from Seaford, and she asks, are there grants that are specifically targeted to serve towns and counties?
Yeah, that's a great question, Annie. I'd say I'd focus really on the notices of funding opportunity and the programs at the Economic Development Administration, or EDA. EDA's programs, I would say, of all of the ones at Commerce, are most targeted towards the smaller units of government, and frequently we're encouraging regional coalitions, so different towns and counties, to band together and submit proposals for a more collaborative and regional approach to economic development.
Perfect. This next question is similar to Peter's a little bit, but it's Colin from Dover, who asks, if I have a new business idea and I want to share my invention or innovation with DOC, how can I share my proposal with you?
Yeah, so I think that my suggestion would be to reach out through the Patent and Trademark Office. That's really our arm into the innovation economy, and they can give you more information about how to advertise and scale your invention and connect you to the right people there.
Perfect, thank you. And then our next question is from Justin from Bear. He asked, I want to expand my export opportunities outside of the United States. I've been told that DOC can assist with this. How can I reach out to you all or learn more about this?
Yeah, this is a great question. So through our International Trade Administration, we do run programs to assist folks just like this. And in particular, I would point you to what are called the U.S. Export Assistance Centers. It was a partnership that Commerce has with the Small Business Administration that can help folks looking to do exactly this. And I can include a link here. This is actually an SBA link, but again, we're partners in this one. I can include a link here in the chat that will give you a lookup tool to help find the closest one to you.
Perfect, that's helpful. Thank you so much. Our next question and our last question is actually from Jesse in Smyrna. Jesse asks, how can DOC help Delawareans improve or create more jobs in the state?
Yeah, we are all about jobs at the Department of Commerce, let me tell you. As you probably heard in my presentation today, a number of our programs are focused on what I would really view as being the sort of the full life cycle of job placement. So we've got certain programs that are really focused on particular industries, like our Climate Ready Workforce program, where we're helping the existing workforce of folks who are out there, they're looking for jobs, they're interested in this kind of employment, build the skill set to be competitive. And then we are also, through really all of our major initiatives, looking for a jobs focus from some of our applicants. And so in particular, we're not just trying to create, the fly by night kind of jobs, and we really want to create good, sustainable jobs for folks in local communities. So that's everywhere from our CHIPS program, where we're prioritizing making awards to areas where there is job creation as part of the application, to some of our business acceleration and incubation programs, where we're helping smaller businesses grow and scale such that they're also creating more jobs. So was absolutely something that we're looking forward to partnering with your communities on.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Like I said, that was our last question, but I really want to say thank you so much again to Whitney for joining us today, and for everyone who tuned in to listen to this presentation. We hope you learned some valuable information, and we can see some federal funding coming to Delaware as well. As a reminder, you can review this webinar and Whitney's presentation on our website, and also will be in our weekly newsletter. So also make sure to stay up to date on our newsletter and sign up so that you can stay up to date with our office. And you can also review our previous 2 webinars that we've had similar to this one with the Department of Energy and the Environmental Protection Agency. Thank you all for coming today. And if you have any other questions about grants or want to chat further with our office, please feel free to contact us on our website or call our office at 302-830-2330. Thanks again, and everyone have a great rest of your day. Thanks, Whitney.
Thank you.